Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null on location, and we're going to be talking about how walnuts can help lower blood pressure for those at risk of heart disease, Penn State University. And we have about 17 other studies to share with you, all from peer-reviewed literature, all from respected institutions, all meant to have you be able to live a longer and healthier life. Then, if time permits, a commentary on how to escape the age of mass delusion, and this is by Stella Morabito. And then I'm going to have some audio clips because I'd like for you to call in after you hear each of these and share your points of view. For example, on millennials, you'll be hearing from Kelly Williams Brown about why they're not the worst. In fact, I don't believe she finds anything wrong with millennials on any level. You could agree or disagree, but you'll have that opportunity. And from Professor Joshua Katz, Toxic Culture of Education. As an educator at the college level for 40 years, I can fully understand his concerns. Also, 5G wireless towers, they're everywhere, and they're going to be on every block in every city in America. And what's it going to do to your health? What's it going to do to your property values? You should be concerned. And also, Julian Assange being interviewed by one of the world's greatest private or independent investigative journalists, John Pilger, on how Hillary Clinton wrote in an email to John Podesta, head of her campaign and former chief of staff under her husband when he was president, John Podesta, that Saudi Arabia and Qatar were both sponsoring ISIS and the terrorist groups, but they also were supporting the Clinton Foundation. Now think of that for a moment. We have, in their own words, prima facie evidence acknowledging, yeah, we know who's funding terrorists. So why won't you condemn them? Why won't you, in some way, prevent them from getting these contracts? Oh, because the largest military weapons contract in world history was signed on, I believe it was the day before Christmas or New Year's, under your administration, and you're the one who signed it. So you got $100 billion, more or less, in contracts for weapons from Saudi Arabia, and your foundation also got tens of millions of dollars. Wow. Why wasn't that on anyone's talking points, and yet that was known? We're going to hear that conversation. So you see, we have a lot to talk about, and at all times, when you'd like to call in and make a point about what we're hearing, do so. I'll also be taking your questions. So we go to the latest on health. So when combining a diet that has quality nuts and seeds, like eating walnuts, you can lower your blood pressure, especially if you're at risk of cardiovascular disease, and having high blood pressure automatically puts you at risk of cardiovascular disease. And this was a randomized controlled trial where they wanted to see what would happen when they replaced some of the saturated fats in a person's diet with walnuts, which are not saturated. And they found that when participants ate whole walnuts daily, combined with an overall lowered saturated fat, they had lower blood pressure. That's a lifesaver. So that's good information and good news. Eat some walnuts, get rid of some of the bad fats in your diet, and lessen your chance of having a heart attack or a stroke. Also, University of Mississippi, cranberries have a particular chemical in them. It's called oligosaccharides, and that can help prevent intrauterine problems. Now, many people have heard that drinking cranberry juice, unsweetened, can help prevent urinary tract infections, or UTIs. And there are clinical studies proving that. And this is the latest one, and this was in the ACS's Journal of Natural Products, and it identified the particular chemical that would make a difference. And it does. So once again, cranberry juice can help kill the bacteria by adhering to human cells, so it makes it difficult for the bacteria to adhere to itself in the bladder or the urethra. And that's good. Also, from Michigan State University comes a study about the loss of our sense of smell comes with higher death risks, meaning as you age, you lose your sense of smell if you're the average person. And healthier people in particular may see an almost 50% increase in the risk of dying within 10 years once their smell goes. Now, there are natural ways to help see that your smell comes back, and a lot of times it has to do with what you're allergic to and also the state of your immune system. So by building up your immune system naturally and also cleansing and detoxifying, you'll get your smell back and hence your taste, and that can take you out of harm's way. So that's important. Also, from University of Illinois comes a study about broccoli. And broccoli is beneficial to the microbiota and the diversity of microbes. What's it mean in lay language? It means that consuming broccoli may change the diversity and composition of the microbiota, or the good bacteria in your gastrointestinal tract. And 200 grams per day of broccoli, that's for 17 days, resulted in 37% increase in the proportion of a particular type of bacteria that's very healthy. And this was published in Experimental Biology. So eat your broccoli, have healthier bacteria, and be a healthier person. Then another study, and this is from Umeå University in Sweden, shows that snoring causes injuries and prevention of healing in the upper airways. The problem is this: the recurrent vibrations caused by snoring can lead to injuries in the upper airways of people who snore heavily. This in turn can cause swallowing dysfunction and render individuals more vulnerable for developing the severe condition of obstructive sleep apnea. And these studies are reported by the researchers at the university in Sweden. So there are natural ways of helping a person overcome sleep disorders, including a mouthpiece. It looks like a teeth guard, one of those little rubberized plastic shields you put in your mouth, and they fit over your upper and bottom. And this, however, has a little different design so that your mouth is in a different position, and it helps you prevent the snoring. The omega-3 fatty acids can help protect against adverse cardiovascular effects of pollution. This is from Case Western University, and it was published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. And what it means is this: the omega-3 fatty acids are terrific against the harmful cardiovascular effects of exposure to air pollution. Now, China is one of the most polluted countries in the world. I was getting a ride to a lecture in California by a professor, and his daughter had just returned from Shanghai the day before, and she was in the car with us. And she said it was so bad that she remembers just a week before walking down the street from where she was staying to the university, and she held her arm clear out, and she could not see her fingers. That's how bad the pollution is. We can't imagine something that bad. There, it is considered common. Now, how many people die of that pollution? We only know that in the northern provinces where they burn coal, it's over 1 million people a year. Total number of people dying of air pollution in China, well, worldwide, it's about 8 to 10 million. So we don't want that. So the omega-3 fatty acids help protect you from particulate air pollution, and that's important. Also, there's a molecule from fasting that keeps your blood vessels young. This is from Georgia State University, and scientists have uncovered a molecule that they say can serve as a fountain of youth for the vascular system. It could also offer a way to turn back the circular system's clock. The molecule which the liver produces during fasting or caloric restriction can delay vascular aging by preventing senescence. the gradual deterioration of the cell's ability to divide and multiply among endothelial cells which line the interior surface of blood vessels. And it's called 8-hydroxybutyrate. The molecule not only promotes cell division, but also helps fight against senescence caused by accumulated DNA damage, which is the primary cause of aging. So live a longer life by restricting calories or going on a modified fast. This was published in Molecular Cell. And from Zhejiang Hospital in China, Tai Chi can reduce the hypertension symptoms, especially in people who are young or middle-aged. This was published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. Now, you've all seen Tai Chi. Hundreds of millions of people do Tai Chi, T-A-I-C-H-I, Tai Chi. It's an exercise. It's a meditation exercise, and where your body goes through slow, rhythmic movements. It helps you with balance, but now they're saying it helps you lower blood pressure. That's a good thing. So try to take a class in Tai Chi. And finally, there is, well, your hair is broken down to what is called keratin, K-E-R-A-T-I-N. And these keratin hydrogels show significant potential to regenerate lost muscle tissue and function from aging. This is the universities of Maryland and Virginia and Wake Forest. 3 universities did this study. And just a little background. The use of human hair-derived keratin biomaterials to regenerate skeletal muscles has shown promise in new research that documents significant increases in both new muscle tissue formation and muscle function among, in this particular volumetric muscle loss study. And this was published in Tissue Engineering. So something to consider. It's not expensive, it's non-toxic, and get your muscle mass back. I'm Gary Null. That's the latest on health and healing. We're going to come right back to your questions. Please stay with us.
A friend of mine who wasn't feeling well recently, and he complained about large humming and buzzing in his apartment. And I thought I don't have any equipment, but I thought I'd take a compass in there. And at certain parts of in the apartment, the compass would point north, and other parts of the apartment, the compass would not point north. It would point in a different direction, east or west. One, I'd like to know if this is an indication of EMF entrance into the apartment, and 2, if we really want to find out if there's EMF entrance into the apartment, who do we call? Thank you for the service, and thank you for all the good work you do.
Okay. Before I answer your question, which is a completely legitimate one and one that we should all be concerned about, we were planning to do a 1-hour special today with Abby Martin on the truth in Venezuela. However, as of this moment, we're not able to reach Abby, and who I'm told is down in Venezuela. But if not today, then tomorrow we'll do a program on the truth about Venezuela. In any case, everyone now should be concerned about 5G, and we're going to play you a clip in a few moments about why you should be concerned. But also 4G, 3G, all of these are capable of causing biochemical, electromagnetic, and structural changes to our DNA. A lot of people are hypersensitive to the environmental impact of these electromagnetic pulses. Your cell phones are giving them, your computer gives them, your laptop gives them. But then you got the big times, where now they want everything in the world to be interconnected off the internet. They've sent up 20,000 satellites, so the whole globe is going to be interconnected. They're cutting down trees in all the city streets because it needs a clear sight and it doesn't go that far, only about 430 feet more or less. And that's not that far. So between 1 and 2 blocks, you're already past that, which means you're going to have these signal towers on almost every building in every city in America and down the streets of suburbs. And because the Bill Clinton signed this in such a way that it gave the Comcast and these Verizon, it gave the big media companies 100% of the control over where these are to be placed. And even if they're shown to be dangerous to health, that doesn't mean that you can stop them from being put into a place. In fact, it's already been tried in a couple cases, and the utilities fought back and won. So we have to repeal that legislation. Now, there's a simple device. It's a Gauss meter, and it can determine, and it's not expensive. You can get one for like $150, and then you can put it by your cell phone, then turn on your cell phone, and then you can see where it's safe or not safe, the electric pulse. And that's why you want to keep your cell phone on speaker and keep it about 8 inches away from your body. Or you can get the blue tubes. These are 2 little tubes that you connect onto your headset, and that neutralizes the pulse from coming into your brain. You can also put it up near a computer screen, and as you bring it back towards you, you'll see that it dramatically drops off. Now that's with the current Wi-Fis, but 5G, you're going to find there's almost no place to go if you live in a city that's not going to be bombarding you 24/7. In fact, one person actually was able to show the waves through an ultraviolet light. So you were in a room and you're having a headache and you're feeling fatigued, and he showed that the whole room was just awash in these electromagnetic pulse signals. And so there is no safe amount, none. And get yourself a Gauss meter to measure the Gauss readings. And so the electromagnetic pulse is coming off every one of these devices. And then try to distance yourself. Smart meters, not good. Try to get them out. But what are you going to do when you have 300 apartments in a building and you've got 2 or 3 of these towers on the building? Every single inch of that entire building and every apartment is going to be affected. Now, those people who have defective immune systems, who are hypersensitive to electromagnetic pulses to begin with, you're going to find life is absolutely unbearable and miserable. It can cause chronic fatigue-like symptoms. It can cause migraines. It can cause sleep disturbances, cancer, heart arrhythmias. Oh, yeah, it's like 60 things it does wrong. And yet you don't hear anything in the mainstream media about it. Nothing. Not a single investigative report. We're doing it. We've already done 11, and we're going to do another one. So that must be my answer. Let's go to another call.
Hi, this message is for Gary. This is Jeff calling from New York. And I have a question. I'm seeing a sweetener pop up, supposedly a natural sweetener. It's called allulose, ALLULOSE. It's supposed to not be digestible, so it doesn't raise blood sugar. And I was just wondering if this sweetener is safe.
It's allulose, ALLULOSE, and it's touted as the next best type of sweetener. I would be very concerned. Now, it's sold as if somehow it tastes and has the same mouthfeel and texture as sugar, and yet it's low in calories. So people say, yeah, I want a low-calorie sweetener. But what you have to look at is you have to say, what is it? All right, allulose is known as D-psychose, P-S-I-C-O-S-E, and it's classified as a rare sugar because it's naturally present only in a few foods. It's figs, raisins, and wheat all contain it. But like glucose and fructose, allulose is a monosaccharide, meaning it's a single sugar, whereas your table sugar, which is sucrose, is a disaccharide made of glucose and fructose joined together. And so it has its own unique chemical constituency, very similar to fructose, but it's arranged uniquely, a little different. And about 70 to 80% of the allulose is consumed by being absorbed into your blood from your digestive tract. So your thought that it's not absorbed, it's not true. It is fully absorbed, and it's eliminated in the urine without being used as a fuel. And it's been shown to resist fermentation by your gut bacteria. So that is something that you should consider. And I would suggest you look carefully at the pros and cons. It's touted to have anti-inflammatory properties, but also small amounts of this rare sugar can cause in some foods in recent years, may not always be good for you. So I'm waiting for all of the information to come in on it. It's being touted to control your blood sugar, lowering your blood sugar. There's some studies on that. But then again, I did the same thing with some of the other natural sugars, coconut sugar, and it bore out. In the end, coconut sugar was fine. Maple syrup, first press and good grade, is also good as well. So we'll wait and see. Too soon to say whether or not this is an important one. It's certainly not in the same category as stevia, which is definitely a win-win. Now, I'm going to play a segment here. I'm going to go from segment and then the description, then segment description, and you have an opportunity to call in and share your points of view. Our talkback number is 888-874-4888, 888-874-4888. This is Millennials, and this person is talking about, as you'll hear her say, she didn't find anything wrong with Millennials, their behavior, their conditioning, their sense of responsibility. But she may be right. What do you think? You'll have a chance to share your points of view before I share mine.
I gotta just Instagram this. I'm not taking a picture of you, it's of me. Perfect. Okay, just talk amongst yourselves. Okay, hashtag TEDx Salem, hashtag living the dream, hashtag YOLO, and share. Perfect. Hi, I'm a millennial, and I am a monster. No one really knows how or why I got this way. There's a lot of different theories, though, as to what could have gone so terribly, terribly wrong with me. It could be that when I was in preschool, I sang a lot of songs meant to build my self-esteem, and now that's why I'm an unrepentant narcissist with no sense of human empathy. That's one theory. It could be also the fact that I got some trophies for participation when I was in elementary school, which is why I would kill my own grandmother if she got in the way of my Instagramming. But no matter whatever is wrong with us, the main thing is that I get to talk about me. So that's good. So let's talk about who I, most importantly, but I guess the millennials in general are. What is a millennial? Who am I? There's some possible answers here. Am I A, a narcissistic jerk? B, a Facebook, social media, Tumblr, Twitter, self-branding man-child? C, someone who, quote, rejects the system and refuses to get a job but never refuses a handout from my parents? Or D, someone born between 1981 and the year 2000? No one can say for sure. But let's talk about some of the conversation that's been happening about millennials, because we've been kind of in the news a lot lately. So let's see what the New York Times has to say. The now generation has become the me generation, they said about the boomers in 1976. Okay, bad example. Let's see what they're actually saying about the millennials. They have trouble making decisions. They would rather hike the Himalayas than climb the corporate ladder. They crave entertainment, but their attention span is as short as one zap of a TV dial, said Time magazine about Gen X in 1990. Gosh, it's almost enough to make you feel that hand-wringing trend pieces about the awfulness of the young people are less of a valid cultural or sociological critique and more of an easy trend piece that moves magazine covers. But I digress. Let's see what people are actually saying about the millennials. Oh, and before I move on, because I don't want us to be accused of plagiarism on top of everything else, thanks to Elspeth Reeve at The Atlantic who compiled those quotes. The worst generation, asks the New York Post. Yes, they say in the second paragraph, absolutely the worst generation. Gen Y managers perceived as entitled, unpolished. This is actually the first time we're hearing the E word in regards to the millennials, but don't worry, we're going to hear it a bunch more. And my favorite, the me generation. Millennials are lazy, entitled narcissists who still live with their parents. I am so glad that Time magazine has single-handedly and selflessly diagnosed every single person in my generation with a serious personality disorder. And P.S., how bad do you feel for this poor woman who thought she was signing up for stock photography and instead found herself the shameful poster child of the worst generation? And here's one problem that I have with general critiques of millennials and these kinds of trend pieces, is the sheer volume of millennials. Now, depending on how you define the cohort, and granted there are no hard and fast rules on this or any generation's boundaries, but we're talking about somewhere between 52.8 and 86 million people. To put that into context, that's more people than African Americans and Asian Americans combined. That's more people than self-identify as Hispanic or Latino on the census, and it's way more than the population of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans. To look at it on a map, we are more than the population of Oregon, Nevada, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Montana, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Kentucky, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island combined. So when you're talking about this mass of people, the more you get into these lazy, simple explanations, the worse you're going to do, because there is one thing and one thing only that you can say about each and every member of the millennial generation. One thing that's true. We are all young or young-ish. Personally, I'm more on the youngish side of things, but I'm clinging to that for now. That's the only thing that all millennials have in common. Which brings me to the E word, entitlement. Now, this word constantly and consistently attaches itself to the millennials. This is the bright orange grease stain on our collective white button-downs, all right? A fun millennial bingo game, which I'm probably the only person who ever plays, but in case you want to, here's how it goes. When you're reading a trend piece about millennials, see how far you can get into the piece before the E word comes up. Usually it's in the title. Sometimes they wait until the second sentence to say it. And this is an idea that people have of the millennials, the give us your money, dad, and I'm going to be a CEO any minute, even though I studied underwater basket weaving or whatever. And I'm not going to fully fight this word. But I do want, and I apologize because I know you guys have been doing nothing but playing interactive games all day, I want everyone to play a game with me. If you have ever been age 21 and are now older, put your hand in the air and keep them there. Okay, keep them up. I'm sorry, 21-year-olds, I'm picking on you for a second, but you'll see why. Okay, if between now and the time you were 21 you have become somewhat less self-centered, less self-focused, keep your hand in the air. Okay? If you have slightly different values now than you did when you were 21, keep your hands in the air. If you had pretty big expectations about what you would achieve and how awesome you were going to be, and you haven't quite achieved all of them, keep your hands in the air. Okay, congratulations, your 21-year-old selves are millennials, or, as some people like to say, young people. And this is the thing about all of these critiques, is that we always have to sort of collectively wring our hands over young people being young and wonder why they can't just have the benefit of maturity and hindsight. And worse yet, with the millennials, it seems like all these studies are coming out, and they tend to mention the same studies over and over again. This is a big one, entitlement-minded workers, there it is. Now, this was a study out of the University of New Hampshire, and this gentleman asked a wide range of ages, from 22 up to people, I believe, in their 50s, about what they expected from work. And he found, surprisingly, that 22-year-olds expected more pay and less work than someone who was in their 50s and had been in the workforce for quite some time. One small issue that I take with this study is the fact that you're taking a cohort of college students who have probably never fully been in the workplace, and then being surprised that they don't have as great of an understanding of workforce dynamics as people who have been there for 20 or 30 years. I know just my 6 years in the workforce have dramatically changed my expectations about how that flows. The other one that you hear a lot about is this one: generational differences in work values, leisure and extrinsic values increasing, social and intrinsic values decreasing. And this is a much more, I think, fair study. This is apples to apples, and they ask a bunch of 18-year-olds through the years about what they value at work and what's important to them. They have found that both Gen X and millennials sort of want more by way of the extrinsic rewards, the money and such. But on the other hand, and this is something, again, that gets mentioned again and again in these pieces, they ask 18-year-olds. Again, show of hands, whose values are slightly different than when they were 18? Okay, so we're not really getting a clear picture of who this generation is as adults. We're looking solely at what they value when they're 18. And even if you're going to take at face value this assertion that we're less interested in work and we're less interested in sort of this system, I guess it bears questioning why that might be. And I don't want to get into a millennial whine, and I promise I'm not going to. But this is something that we grew up with. This was our model. We came of age.
All right. So, what do you make of what she was saying? That we're no different than any other generation of young people. That some of our values may have changed between 18 and 20, 30, 35, and that we're not really asking for very much. So don't blame us. All right, your thoughts. I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'll hold my thoughts. The number is 888-874-4888. While we're listening to that, I want to go to Hillary Clinton being challenged because she knew. How do we know she knew? She actually has an email that she sent to John Podesta. Here's Julian Assange being interviewed by John Pilger on this very topic. Why has she never been called out on this? Why should she not be held accountable for supporting terrorism and killing, beheading, bombing, burning of people and places by Saudi Arabia and Qatar and United Arab Emirates, all of whom she did business with, all of whom she defended, all of whom she befriended, all of whom gave money to the Clinton Foundation? In and of itself, that's enough to challenge her as a qualified presidential candidate, but no one did challenge her. So listen to this if you want a reality check.
From Hillary Clinton, so not so long after she left Secretary of State, to her campaign manager, John Podesta. That email, it states that ISIS, is funded by Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The governments of Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Now, this is I think this is the most significant email in the whole collection. And perhaps because Saudi and Qatari money is spread all over the place, including into many media institutions. All serious analysts know, even the US government has mentioned or agreed with that some Saudi figures have been supporting ISIS, funding ISIS. But the dodge has always been that's it's just some rogue princes using their cut of the oil money to do whatever they like, but actually the government disapproves. But that email says that no, it is the governments of Saudi and the government and Qatar that have been funding ISIS.
The Saudis, the Qataris, the Moroccans, the Bahrainis, particularly the Saudis and the Qataris, are giving all this money to the Clinton Foundation, while Hillary Clinton is Secretary of State, and the State Department is approving massive arms sales, particularly to Saudi Arabia.
Under Hillary Clinton, and our Clinton emails reveal significant discussion about it, the largest ever arms deal in the world was made with Saudi Arabia, more than $80 billion. In fact, during her tenure as Secretary of State, total arms exports from the United States in terms of their dollar value doubled.
And of course, the consequence of that is that this notorious terrorist jihadist group called ISIL or ISIS is created largely with money from the very people who are giving money to the Clinton Foundation.
Yes.
You get a lot of complaints from people saying, what is WikiLeaks doing? Are they trying to put Trump in the White House?
My analysis is that Trump would not be permitted to win. Why do I say that? Because he's had every establishment offside. Trump doesn't have one establishment, maybe with the exception of the evangelicals, if you can call them an establishment. But banks, intelligence, arms companies,
Well, they all want him beat.
foreign money, etc.,
Yeah.
is all united behind Hillary Clinton, and the media as well. So media owners and even journalists themselves.
Okay, your thoughts. The number one sponsor of terrorism in the world, Saudi Arabia. Right behind that, Qatar. Then Bahrain and United Arab Emirates. Many of the very same countries that are now funding the war after 4 years in Yemen, causing the largest amount of destruction, the greatest humanitarian disaster, with 20 million people starving to death out of 29 million in the country. And we are supporting all that. But that was Barack Obama. Now it's Trump. But it was Hillary Clinton that negotiated all that. She could have stopped all that. She could have said, you go into funding terrorists, we stop buying anything from you, from oil to selling you weapons. But she didn't. She never criticized them. Even when they were throwing gays, tying them to a chair, blindfolding them and throwing them off buildings, beheading them. So, but you go out to get the gay vote. What exactly have you done to earn it? To show that you're willing to commit yourself to a higher ideal with gay rights by saying, no, I'm not going to do business with you if you're going to hold these primal dispositions towards gays. But she didn't. She coddled them. And as a result, business as usual. The medical industrial complex, she did the same thing, which didn't cause any price to be lowered, or any of the unwanted side effects from conditions that should never have happened. She didn't want universal health care. As a result, today there was an article that I read that a young boy's snake bite cost $173,000. That's insane. That's all about over-medicating and overbilling. And it's completely legal. Where was her voice? Where was her voice challenging Citizen United to get the money out of politics and increasing the minimum wage? She's the one who kept the wages down at Walmart, where they had a special chair on the board just for her. And she lied about products coming in from China, and she was caught. But she's been caught lying her whole career. So here's the question then. Why is it that we have continued to believe that the Clintons should be a voice for the Democrats? Now, there are new Democrats coming in who have more humanistic and altruistic values. Whether they have any power in the end, we will see. But the old corporate, the people who run the Democratic Party, the Deborah Wasserman Schultz and Donna Brazile, they conspired to keep the election from Bernie Sanders. That caused a backlash, and an enormous amount of Bernie supporters voted for, as a protest vote, for Trump. Nobody knew how bad or stupid or vile Trump would be. You could only guess it, but he hasn't disappointed anyone in being, without question, the dumbest person in the history of the White House. And that's not saying a lot, because George Bush could say, well, that also belongs to me. But it was Clinton behind all these deals, secretly twisting the arms of countries to take genetically modified seeds, or there would be consequences to them, threatening them, whole countries. We got that through WikiLeaks. Working behind the scenes so that she could coddle the union vote, at the same time doing only anti-union lobbying for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have gutted all the remaining unions. And yet when it came out, unions still supported her. So we have to ask ourselves a question. Why, in the face of such contradictions to reason and benevolence, do we continue to support people who are clearly not doing anything in our best, we the people's best interest, and only allowing a greater increase in the inequality on all levels? She supported charter schools rather than public schools, and so it goes. But there you have Wikipedia, WikiLeaks, I should say, showing that she knew all along. She's never been challenged by any of the mainstream media on these discrepancies. And her biggest crime against humanity, not just overthrowing the democratically elected president of Honduras and supporting the fascist regime through Gloria Nuland in Ukraine, which is not Russia, by the way, and also supporting the overthrow and regime change of Assad in Syria or Gaddafi in Africa. Take a look at Gaddafi's Libya today versus then. You could walk any street in Libya without any fear at any time of the day or night. You had no debt. The country had no debt. It had billions of dollars in reserves, in gold reserves, had the largest amount of gold of any country in Africa. It believed in uniting the countries of Africa that had been exploited by the colonial rule and then post-colonial rule from Belgium to France to England and Germany, so that there would be a united African alliance. And he was putting the money into it. He had already given them a reservoir of water, the greatest aquifer ever created on the planet. And he saw that every single Libyan had a home. And he would not live outside of his tent, nor his mother or father, till every Libyan prior to them had a home. He would give you $50,000 when you were pregnant. If you wanted to be a farmer, he would buy you a farm and give you the seeds and equipment to farm. If you were sick, you could go to any hospital in the world and be treated, including all your expenses. If you wanted an education in the most highly literate country in Africa, he would send you to any school you wanted and pay all your expenses. No debt, no crime. And everything was done not by the fiat of dictatorial power, despotic rule, oligarchical rule, or monarchical rule, as you have in Saudi Arabia and Qatar and United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi and Dubai, but instead democratic conferences. There were thousands of them, so every community could rule itself, set its own rules. And it was called the Paris of Africa. That's what the media didn't tell you. That is not going to be the photographs of pre-invasion that they would show you. So they created lies, and the American public bought it because the media was complicit. So, and behind all that, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. It's genocide. Any responsibility? Anyone holding up their hand says, we screwed up, we'll take responsibility? No one. What are your thoughts? If you have some thoughts on this, please share them. Our talkback number is 888-874-4888. And now we're going to go to 5G wireless towers are raising health and property value concerns. It's only 5 minutes. It's important you hear this.
Nation's fastest 3G network, so you can download faster on your smartphone than Verizon.
With 4G from Sprint, I can download files up to 10 times faster than 3G.
Upload 10 photos in a minute. Verizon 4G LTE.
Get ready for more ads like those. The wireless industry is in a race to roll out 5G service. Now, 5G is supposed to be up to 100 times faster than current data speeds. Could have used it on Amtrak yesterday. But it requires cell phone tower equipment to be closer to users than ever before. And that is causing outrage and alarm in some neighborhoods as antennas go up around the homes. Tony DeCopel is here with both sides of the conversation. Tony, lots of chatter about this. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. There's outrage, but there's also excitement. 100 times faster. But get this, wireless companies in the U.S. say they'll have to install about 300,000 new antennas for the rollout of 5G. That is roughly equal to the total number of cell phone towers built over the past 3 decades. The faster network could create new potential for work and play, but it's also leading to new concerns. Go.
At a lab in New York, Verizon invited us to meet some of the entrepreneurs developing tools to run on the next generation of wireless technology.
How important is 5G to your mission?
5G is extremely important.
Jonathan Reeves demonstrated his product, Arvisio.
As you move around, the object stays fixed in space.
Look at that. That's amazing.
Allowing users in different locations to interact with 3D images projected through a lens.
Today we can do this using Wi-Fi technology, and we can do it using landline technology, but of course you're then tied to particular locations. With 5G now we can begin to extend this, so we can actually begin to start doing this on building sites. We can start doing it on the factory floor. So it really opens up a whole new world.
But before this world can become reality, this one needs to change. 5G requires the installation of new equipment across the U.S.
So this pole here is 5G. This is the future right here.
You got it.
Every wireless company is working to build its own 5G network. Melissa Arnoldi leads AT&T's efforts.
If you don't already have one of these in your neighborhood, they're coming.
That's absolutely right. They're coming.
She says 5G uses high-frequency waves that support faster speeds, but don't travel as far as current wireless frequencies. So instead of relying on large cell phone towers spread far apart, they need small cell sites that are much closer together.
We're going to use our existing infrastructure today, whether it's light poles, whether it's street lights. We're going to make sure that we don't make it obtrusive to our customers and to the citizens.
Yet some don't share the enthusiasm.
The cell towers are called small cell towers, but they're not so small when they're in your front yard.
Donna Barron is protesting plans to convert light poles in her Montgomery County, Maryland neighborhood into small cell sites.
This will cause cancer.
She was one of several people who raised health concerns at a government hearing last month.
This stuff is untested on kids. Their safety is not certain. These untested technologies are, at this time, not ready to be unleashed into our lives.
Cell phone equipment emits radiation, but research on its health effects has been inconsistent. According to the National Cancer Institute, a limited number of studies have shown some evidence of statistical association of cell phone use and brain tumor risks. But most studies have found no association.
If you lose this fight and a pole goes in right here, are you going to move?
Possibly.
Either way, Barron says she fears property values could plummet when 5G equipment pops up.
If a tower goes up right there, what's going to happen to the value of that home?
It could drop 20%.
And not only for this house.
Right, for that house, that house, that house. And then pretty soon you go around the curve and there's another cell tower. They're all through this neighborhood. So it's going to devastate the neighborhood.
Arnoldi insists her workers are focused on safety, pointing out they live and work near this equipment too.
Do you have any 5G antennae in your neighborhood yet?
No, not yet. I'm waiting for it. It's coming soon, though. It's coming soon.
So I'm guessing from that reaction, then you're very comfortable with it rolling out in your neck of the woods.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, look, this is our
wireless carrier service to a handful of cities later this year, but don't get too excited to really take advantage.
Here's the problem. The problem is that the people are being manipulated in the typical Edward Bernays, America's first propagandist, to get authority figures that first they have to accept that authority figure has a greater insight into all truth than you do. On top of that, then they propagandize that there's no study showing a problem. Well, clearly that journalist hasn't done his homework. And referring to the National Cancer Institute is like referring to the FDA or the CDC about the safety of anything. You're never going to get an honest answer. But we found, Richard Gale and myself found 10,000 articles on PubMed showing the dangers. If we can find this in 5 minutes, 10,000 articles on how dangerous they are, why isn't this information being shared anywhere? Why isn't there any national protest? There isn't. So the likelihood is it will come. And only after it's been installed, then will people begin to suffer. And then there'll be a protracted fight, just like there was with Monsanto and glyphosate and smoking and emphysema and cancer and asbestos and mesothelioma. And it'll take another 20 years until finally they lose. They'll pay a fine and continue doing business. That's the American way. I want to mention that the bill to repeal the religious exemption, Senate Bill 2994, is reported to be on the Senate Health Committee agenda and is set to be voted on this coming Tuesday. there are enough yes votes for the bill to pass the Health Committee and then go to the Senate floor for a vote. This is extremely bad for everyone who believes that they should have the freedom to choose a vaccine, and this is mandating it. So I suggest you call the Senate Health Committee Chair, Senator Rivera. Let me give you that number. Please write it down. 718-933-2034. 718-933-2034, and ask him to hold public hearings on removing the religious exemption. Both sides should be heard. And please also email to him your request, and it would be G Rivera, R-I-V-E-R-A, at newyorksenate.gov. G Rivera at newyorksenate.gov, and ask your own senator to make the request. This is a fair request, and we, the people, deserve equal time. And that's important. And remember, the bill co-sponsors have refused to meet with parents and kids and advocates and lawyers and doctors before they support the bill. What does that tell you? Like the Senator Salazar and Thomas and Kruger and Bailey and Ramos and Biaggi and Montgomery and Carlucci, not people, in my opinion, who should be elected to any office. And any person that can be shown that they met privately with ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, those individuals should be removed from office because they're not working on your behalf. They're working on the major people behind the scenes. I'm going to hold one of our commentaries about our educational system for tomorrow because it's 8 minutes long. We don't have that. But since no one called in, let me just share a few points of view. The comments were disingenuous by the young woman, the millennial. First and foremost, let me give you some reality check here, something they seem oblivious to. The last generation, and there are exceptions, depending upon the quality of their parents, relatives, and input, and grandparents, they're living in cultural bubbles. They're living in economic bubbles. They're spending money they don't have. They have expectations that if they want to go to a college, they should go to an Ivy League college or a good college, what they consider better college than state universities, which in and of itself is a myth. And who signs for them to go to that college? They can't. So the debt becomes that of the parent and in some cases the grandparent. I've spoken with our new documentary, Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And that was based upon a statement from the Great Depression about people who are living on Social Security and some with the Social Security and pension, and they're responsible for a relative's granddaughter, grandson's college. And there seems to be little concern because 55% of graduates from college are sitting around not working. Not that they couldn't work, but there is this idea that I don't want to work at anything that isn't honoring who I am. Okay. What happens when the bill comes due? What happens when a SWAT team delivers the information that you are now in arrears, and they can confiscate your bank account? They can confiscate what little you have. They can take a lien against your savings. That doesn't seem to be on anyone's radar. We're not talking about a few people. Remember, there are approximately the same amount of millennials as there are the millennials and baby boomers. Almost equal. So if you can't pay for your own bills, why would you encourage the expense to begin with? Did you think about going to a trade school? Did you think about not doing trades or academic classroom studies until such time that you could determine what would be the best approach based upon where the economy is going? Did you study the economy? Did you study the best places to live? Did you study what are some of the advantages or disadvantages of renting versus buying, of saving instead of spending, of being healthy instead of unhealthy, because the millennials are an unhealthy generation. They're eating the most junk food in American history. Also, what about when you're raised in a cultural bubble? Did you sit down and have a conversation with your parents, especially if your parents are professionals? And we're talking about if you add 70 million times 3 or 210 million people, and that's a low figure, by the way, 200 million people living beyond their means. Did you ask them, why are you doing all this work? Why are you going to work early and coming back late? And I don't need all these things you're buying. I don't need this high quality standard of living. I'm more interested in the quality of life. When was the last time you had that conversation? And the person kind of jokingly said, oh, we don't have a problem taking money. Well, what about the debt you create? And did you decide that you would be conscious enough to get together and protest student debt and ask for it to be completely eliminated, which was done, which would be about 1.6 trillion, which was done at 21 trillion for corporate America, where the debt was forgiven. And there was an $85 billion a year in structural adjustments given, in effect, free, interest-free money. Where's the protest? Where is there a movement to become vegan? Teenagers are becoming vegan, not millennials. Where is it that you would go out and work at any job to help lessen the burden of someone else who is older and stressed to pay for your choosing not to have work? Now, someone who has hired dozens of millennials, she mentioned, well, what happens over 5 years? I have yet to have a millennial work 5 years. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, they've worked all of 4 days, then just never showed up again in what many consider rather ideal working conditions because they just didn't care. So try to whitewash all you want. There are exceptions, absolutely, but the vast majority of millennials, you need a reality check. You are unprepared for the real world. What do you know about the real world? What do you know about foreign policy and domestic policy? What do you know about where our tax dollars are spent? And why haven't you protested that we have one uniform one uniform corporate tax? 65 of the world's largest corporations and American corporations paid no taxes and made billions of dollars. That's unfair. If you gave all of them a 15% or 20% tax, that would bring in revenue. And when did you protest that you don't want 58 cents out of every dollar of our money that we pay in taxes going to the military-industrial complex? What do you know about Yemen? What do you know about regime change? What do you know about GMOs? You know a lot about social media. You know about your friends on social media and the things you find of interest. But then again, that's not inside your bubble. I'm Gary Null. Thank you all for listening, and I'll look forward to sharing more tomorrow, and hopefully we'll do our full program on Venezuela tomorrow.